Living with a learning difficulty can be difficult, but it is important for pupils to have an understanding about the different types of learning difficulties. One of the most commonly known learning difficulties is dyslexia, which is a development reading disorder. It causes words to mix themselves up and look obscure. Dyscalculia is similar to dyslexia, but it affects numbers. You also have dyspraxia, which causes issues with coordination and speech. ADHD is also a known difficulty. It affects your attention span and you have problems with hyperactivity. You also have autism, which is a neurological development disorder that impairs social interaction, verbal and non-verbal communication. It can also affect your information process into the brain. All of these are learning difficulties and can affect people in many different ways.
Well, I was told I was dyspraxic when I was about 6 years old. Dyspraxia is supposedly similar to dyslexia, but it affects people differently because some people have problem with the reading because of it, but I don't. I have no problem with my reading, but it affects mainly coordination, where it affects like how my handwriting looks mainly and how well I do some activities. But I don't really know that much more about it now because I was never really told about it. I never got given a statement or anything.
Myself personally has never had an experience with a learning difficulty, but my mum has, and when she was in school she was more or less made out to be quite stupid really. Her friends and her family and the people around her never realised that the reason that she was struggling in school and the reason that she couldn't read like others could be because she had a learning difficulty, not just because she had low intelligence. She never really received any support. Her getting no support didn't just affect her when she was younger and when she was in school, it affected her in the long run.
I think the government should invest more money into education establishments to allow new staff and existing members of staff to retrain in learning difficulties.
I don't know, sorry.
Is it dyslexia or something?
Do you know anything about dyspraxia?
Sorry, I don't know anything about dyspraxia.
Do you know anything about dyslexia?
I think that's something to do with getting your words mixed up.
Do you know anything about autism?
I think one of the boys in my high school had it. They got treated quite differently because they got bullied, and it's because they were different, they just got treated that way.
Did your teachers explain what autism was?
No, the teachers didn't explain anything about autism to us. They just sort of said, he's got autism, I'll leave him alone.
Do you know anything about ADHD?
No, I don't know anything really about ADHD, sorry.
What have all these got in common?
Is it some sort of disability?
Well, my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 6, and it's a complex disorder and it affects his brain development a lot, but it doesn't mean that it makes him any different from anyone else, and it doesn't mean that I love him any less. Like, a lot of people don't really know what autism is. My son, he has difficulties with social settings and interactions, and he has trouble with verbal and also non-verbal communication. So whereas other kids would excel and they'd go out and they'd socialise, that's not really what he wants to do because it's just not something that he can do really. At first we noticed it when his speech development wasn't really developing as fast as it should have been. He was only picking up a select few words and not really many at all. So that's when we first noticed it. We acted upon it because we was noticing as well, because obviously he was getting to an age where he'd go to nursery and he'd go to school and he'd be with other kids all the time, but he had little interest in communication, and with people his own age he just didn't really want to socialise with them. It's not something he wanted to do. He didn't want to play with them like all the other kids wanted to play. He didn't like it. He's unusually intolerant of people being around him and is really conscious of his personal space, and that's something that myself, I've got to be careful of as well, because obviously I don't want to upset him or cause any issues, but I think because he's used to me, it's easier. Although he's conscious of his own personal space, he's not really aware of anyone else's. He doesn't know where the boundaries lie. It's lucky that we picked it up quite early, so we can get the best possible advice and start helping as soon as possible and doing it for the benefit of our son. It's not the person, it's more like the settings that disables the person. So I'm worried about him starting high school because obviously in primary school, the more like naive, they do understand, well, they don't quite understand why he's different, but they do know that he is different, but because they're so young, they don't really understand it, so they just get on with it, they don't ask any questions, and they still involve him anyway, they don't really care. But obviously, as he's growing up, people will start to ask questions, and they will start to like pick him out from the rest because he isn't the same, but that doesn't mean he should be treated any differently. I think something should be put in place in the educational system, because if you give children from a young age more of an understanding, if you teach them about it, then it'll just come as natural to them, they'll know about it, and I think it will decrease bullying in the long run because people will be more aware, and obviously, like, a lot of the time bullying occurs because people don't really understand. Although he doesn't do as well at maths and English as someone his age should be doing, he does really excel in art. He's got a really creative side. So overall, I hope that my personal experience will be beneficial to other parents in a situation such as mine who didn't know anything about autism, and obviously when my son got it, like, it doesn't make him any different from anyone else. There's no reason to be sad about it. I believe that it just makes him more unique.
You shouldn't be expected to know about learning difficulties, but then again you should already know about them. People with learning difficulties aren't different, they just need a different method in which to learn.